So now I'd like to look specifically at how we can and have used social media to recruit a specific trial. I think, when I think about this, I'm looking back on 20-plus years of patient recruitment activity. And each time there's a new medium or a new tool or a technique comes into the market, there's this hope that it will simplify this increasingly challenging task of enrolling a research study. So far, not one of them has been the panacea that many have hoped it would be, and I don't believe that social media will be one either. In our experience, social and online media are part of the story, or the mix in marketing terms. But even so, if we can generate 10 or 20% of the desired randomized patients from a social media outreach effort, and we can do that cost efficiently, then by all means, let's put it to work. So I have two examples here of how we've done that. First, for the task of recruiting a specific trial, and then for the purpose of shortening recruitment for a future study. So I guess I'd like to be encouraging and let you all know that no matter how experienced you feel you are with social media, you know more about it than you think you do, or know more how to apply it. Because it's the same process that you've been going through for all of the other techniques and messaging. First, you need to know who the ideal patient is for this protocol and why. What motivates them to want to consider this study? Where do they get information? How do they use it? And most importantly, how do you create an exchange or a transaction between what they want from their time online and what it is that you're asking them to do? And so that's really the balance. And in that way, leveraging social media is no different than any other marketing channel. But let's assume that the e-patient is a target for your protocol. You then can develop the strategy and choose tactics. So in the example that Matt gave earlier in terms of the lupus situation, the messages would be different to the sufferers of the condition. And you might very well be online, because we know people who have self-image problems have a tendency to spend more time online than others. And their spouses or other caregivers might be better reached through another medium, perhaps radio, based on the age cohort that we'd be looking for, and the predominantly male audience of spouses of most people with lupus being female. So once we've chosen then the tactics, the ability of social media to deliver a target message will significantly influence your choice. So there are some websites where the users have created a profile, and demographic targeting can be used to direct your promotion, search placement based on gender, age, income, employment status, for example. So what this could mean for a hormone replacement therapy is that we could target specifically and exclusively women between the ages of 45 and 60. Based on location of an e-patient's computer, whether it's identified by the IP address or by information provided in the user's profile, the ads can be delivered geographically, whether you want to do that by country, city, state, a postal code, or a radius around your participating sites. When you're inside a particular website, such as an WebMD or Wrong Diagnosis, you can also target things based on the searches, and this is what we refer to as contextual targeting. So then your ads could be delivered based on the relevant search terms that people have used within the search function inside those websites. So you could particularly, if you were looking for parents for an ADHD study, for example, and you can, the advertising function inside those websites tracks the search strength, and then based on questions about learning disorders in kids with ADHD, it could serve an advertisement for that kind of study. And perhaps the most sophisticated kind of targeting is what we refer to as behavioral. And there are a limited number of sites that are able to deliver on this, but what we're looking for is not just what they've done in terms of content searched, but the amount of time that somebody spends with a topic or the actions that they take. So if you were looking for people with diabetes that are taking insulin, you could serve your ad up to people who had clicked on another ad looking for insulin supply. Here's an example of how we integrated in the marketing mix both traditional media and online social media. And in this case, it's a pediatric condition, and the target audience was caregivers, parents between the ages of 25 and 45. While we know this demographic are heavy users of TV, and then the internet, and then radio, we actually chose radio and online social media because of the balance that it would give us of reach and frequency. So to capture the audience during drive time, we used radio, but we used radio to promote educational events where we could link the parents and their desire for information into a direct communication with the study participating principal investigators and study sites. The second effort was online media and placing things, in this case, in Facebook. So it's an online paid search, but within a social media environment. And then those people were directed to a website where there was a pre-screener, or they could go directly to an optional call center. The same was true as people attended the educational event. They were also able to be directed to these other online and phone-based mechanisms for pre-qualifying and then get redirected to the site. Both the paid search and banner advertising that we did on Facebook contributed to significant response, and then this study met the referral targets within a matter of 10 business days. But while I'm on this, I just want to mention one other important guiding principle of online marketing of any kind. If you're engaging customers or potential study participants in an online environment, you must give them an opportunity to pursue the exchange of information thoroughly online. Don't push e-patients offline if at all possible, because then you will severely undermine the return of their interest and then, by extension, the return on your investment. The second example here is using social media to shorten recruitment for a future study. And I know I hear about it all the time from people, so I'm sure most of you have experienced a situation where you've invested money in outreach and a significant portion of the respondents did not pre-qualify for the study. So despite your best efforts to be clear that you were looking for patients with diabetes who were currently taking metformin, patients taking insulin called, patients just on diet and exercise called, patients taking 2 or more anti-diabetic medications called. So while we couldn't benefit or take advantage of their interest for this study, wouldn't it have been nice to channel their interest into clinical research into something more? And here's how we do this, is looking at how do you turn this unqualified response for study A into a recruitment resource. And this is particularly effective when you have multiple studies in a single therapeutic area, when the enrollment timelines are either overlapping or you think you're going to be able to deliver an option to that resource within a calendar year. The responses can come, as I said, from traditional or social media, but converting them into a membership in a community that you've established, really borrowing from the concept of social networks, but having it be one that you have more control over. And just keep in mind that different patients come to the internet for different things, and you need to be willing and able to commit resources to maintaining relationships over time. So some people come for education, or some for news, some for access, some for an opportunity to make a connection and to ask a question. And here's a graphic that kind of shows how the flow of this works, where you identify the therapeutic area. It could be depression or allergy or arthritis, and many situations would apply. And then you pass these, you do your outreach, whether it's traditional or social media, and pass these people through the online community first, and then through a sophisticated branch logic to match them with the particular study that's the best fit for their needs. Now I'd like to turn it over to Linda to address another area about which we get question upon question, and I think we had one today from Sandpiper in this category.
Thank you, Bonnie. Yes, we do hear a lot of questions and concerns from a variety of internal departments, and we like to consider and try to satisfy all of them. So actually at this point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to you to get your feedback in a polling question. If we could activate that on the right-hand side again of your screen, you should see the poll come up, and the question is, what have you heard as barriers or opportunities for social media? And you may choose as many of these as apply. 1, social media is too uncontrolled. We need to be able to control the messaging. 2, ads appearing on social networking sites are riskier than on other internet outlets. 3, we can't appear to be promoting off-label use of approved products. 4, we have to use social media only. It's cheaper than traditional media. 5, we have a web strategy, and marketing needs to control this outreach and this budget. Or 6, if you've heard other concerns, could you type your answer in the box that's provided? So we're going to give you some time here to vote, and while you're thinking, let's move on to the next slide. So actually, one of the objections we've heard that wasn't on the list, and that is actually what Sandpiper was asking about, is this lack of FDA regulations around social media. Some sponsors are waiting for this before jumping into the whole arena. And if we could, that would be great. So clearly there's some confusion about regulations in the arena of social media. Last year in April, the FDA issued 14 untitled letters to pharmaceutical companies for their paid search practices. You may have heard about that. The companies were operating under the assumption that if risk information was one click away from the ad, it was acceptable. The FDA clarified that there really is no such rule. Then in November last year, the FDA held hearings to get testimony from industry regarding several questions, including the level of accountability to which manufacturers and distributors are responsible for online communications, as well as questions specific to Internet adverse event reporting. Interestingly, the predominant group represented there were communications agencies, and there was much lower participation from pharmaceutical companies and patients. Per Sandpiper's question about how to mitigate risks of finding adverse events on social media, there was an interesting survey done by Nielsen where they looked at 500 comments and found that really only one was an actual adverse event that met all the criteria of the FDA. So that's a 0.2% return. If that's true across industry, that's pretty low. Doesn't mean that it shouldn't be a consideration and built into processing for companies, but it's good information to know. So what can you do about this particular barrier? Well, the FDA is accepting public comments until February 28th, and if there's a group or committee inside your company that's submitting comments to the FDA or just discussing this, you probably want to make sure that clinical research is at least represented. And if I look at the results here of the poll, thank you so much for participating. We have a lot of people saying that the concern is it's too uncontrolled. That seems to be the predominant concern here. So what else can you do to address these barriers? As we discussed before, there is a range of control that's implementable across social media. We can help various internal parties understand those levels within each vehicle to help them feel they can make a more informed decision. And taking advantage of opportunities to educate and inform is really a powerful tool. social media may have sound like it's open to the world, but really it can be more like a private club, depending how you set it up. And so it's important to look at what's effective